Hi everyone, this is Victoria Kennedy, medium clairvoyant from Los Angeles, California. And tonight's Rant and Rave is kind of deciding, do I want to talk about our mental health system or do I want to talk about shadow people, which is more paranormal? But I think that it's important to address our mental health crisis that we do have lingering not only in California, but pretty much in every state. I remember during COVID, trying to keep everything as normal as possible for my son. And once everything ended and he went back to school, I wanted him to kind of have I guess we can say a therapy session. And we did. But the only thing is, well, obviously it was done online, which is perfectly fine for all of us. And right now you're going to hear probably a lot of background noise, but the school's getting out, so I do apologize for that. But anyhow, we had to reach out to, I want to say, about a good maybe 5 to 7 therapists. Like I said, there was nothing wrong with him. I just wanted him to be able to have that outlet if he needed to. And out of those 5 to 7 therapists that we reached out to, one, can you believe it? One therapist actually responded back to us. And I remember I was thinking, what if this was truly a crisis? What if my son needed immediate intervention for some mental health related issue? So I have to admit that was concerning. And I want to say about a couple of weeks ago, a really good friend of mine, she actually lost her husband. I want to say it's going on maybe like 6 years already. And I've said it over and over to her, you're not dealing with the death of your husband. It's so important that you do. You cannot just try to keep yourself busy so you don't have to deal with it. Because sooner or later, it's going to boil to the top and you're going to have to face it head on, and it's not going to be pretty. And she acknowledged, like, I know. And I remember telling her, if your son calls me and tells me I cannot get my mom off of the floor because she's having an emotional crisis, I said, I'm going to be so pissed at you. I truly, truly am. I know everybody grieves in their own ways and in their own timing. But, dealing with any type of crisis needs to be dealt with. Because eventually it's going to rise to the surface. As I mentioned, it's going to boil to the surface, and that's when all hell's going to break loose. There's grieving steps that, everyone has to take. It doesn't matter if it's with a husband, a wife, a spouse, a child, a parent, a sibling. It doesn't matter. It's important that everybody deals with the loss at hand. And like I said, a couple of weeks ago, she had told me that she had a really bad panic attack one morning when she was driving to work. And she decided that she was not going to go to work. She turned right back around and went home. And she didn't know what was going on. And she called another friend of ours, and she pretty much said, oh, you're having a panic attack. And, these panic attacks can boil over when you're not having that personal time with yourself, that one-on-one time, having that self-care, which again goes with the whole grieving process of everything. And she told me, I called several therapists. Not one called me back. I made another round of calls. And they said, oh, well, we can get you in as a patient, but it's going to be, I want to say, about a month or two. Now, let's rethink that. Somebody is having an emotional crisis. And we already know, well, I'm just talking about California and Los Angeles County alone. Our systems within LA County, I have to be honest, they are not worth shit, to be upfront and honest. We are taxed on every single thing that we do here in California. We get paid, we're taxed. We go shopping, we're taxed. At the end of the year, Government Sam wants more of our money. And what happens? We're taxed again. There's no getting away from it here in California. That's why we say California sucks. Nobody should ever move here. But anyhow, that's totally another different topic. But we have to address our mental health issues because there's so many young people that are struggling with mental health issues. We have social media. They have, trying to be able to fit in. There's people who are being bullied. They're having identity crisis. What's going on? How am I able to function? I'm so afraid. There's just so much going on. But yet when you call, and yet again, we pay a lot of money in California for everything, including our own personal health insurance. You can't get in. You have to schedule an appointment for months, about a month or two. So let's reflect on that. If we look at an average of those that have committed suicide, that has increased dramatically. I want to say since COVID. Since COVID, all the kids were locked down. You can't go nowhere. You can't talk to no one if you don't have a mask. You can't. You will not be able to go shopping unless you get the jab. You cannot go and get food unless you get the jab, right? So the government pretty much creates a circle of fear. I either get the jab so I can eat, go buy food, and live a normal life, or do I get the jab so that way I can have long-term health effects? Because we all know there's going to be long-term side effects in regards to that jab. So you're living in this constant state of fear. What was it, about a year? 6 months to a year. And it's affected people mentally, physically, especially the younger kids. I have seen so many kids who now, because of being locked down, they have to have that the whole mental health related issues that are going on. It's important that they actually receive that therapy. They go to school. They don't like it. You have counselors you can talk to. You have a principal you can talk to. You have a school nurse you can talk to. But yet, when it all boils down, the mental health is not prepared to handle absolutely anything. And you have these people who want to go into the mental health profession so they can help. But are they helping? I mean, truly and honestly, think about that. Let's say your child is having a crisis. The doctor says, hey, you need to get them into a therapist. You want it right here and right now, but you can't. It's not right here, right now. It's when they are able to see your son or daughter. And then we have to look at the insurance aspect of it. Do they take our insurance? Or is it a PPO? Is it an HMO? There's so many obstacles that the mental health facilities, I guess we can say, have pretty much caused. There's so many obstacles. Why do people have to jump through so many hoops? If a person wants to go to school to learn, to be able to work in the mental health area, then they should want to be able to work in that. It's not dealing with 5150s, which are homeless people who have just lost all their marbles and are a danger to themselves or a danger to society. These are also people who they don't understand what's going on. And some kids, they feel comfortable talking to their parents. Some kids don't feel comfortable talking to their parents. Some adults feel comfortable still talking to their parents or their siblings, and some don't. So they need that additional help. But it should not take anyone a month or two to make an appointment. So what are you going to do? You're going to have an emotional breakdown. You're not going to be able to function in society until you can get in to see a mental health professional. I just don't get it. If I worked in the mental health profession, I would have my set appointments, right? So when you're having your set appointments, you have to have time management skills. And maybe these mental health professionals don't have time management skills. And I get it. It's overwhelming. There's so many people who need that help. And sometimes the therapist cannot keep up. So is there a demand for mental health professionals? Are there more people in school? Are they being paid at a higher wage? How is the job market for that? All I know is that something needs to be done. Not only here in Los Angeles, or in California in general, but all over. There's so many, well, I'm not going to say so many, but there is a hotline that that kids can call or adults can call. And there's always somebody there. But these people, they're volunteers. And unfortunately, maybe somebody is having really bad anxiety. They're not going to be able to prescribe that medicine for them. So again, there's another issue. And don't get me wrong, I totally think anybody who is volunteering in and working those helplines, kudos to them. I feel that if that were me and I was on the other end of that line as a volunteer, I don't think I would be a good match. And I say that not because I don't care about people, but I'm so in tune with people's feelings that would make it extremely difficult for me. I probably literally would be crying on the other line with a person, and that's not what they need. They need somebody who's going to be strong, who's going to be able to listen to them, at the same time being extremely sympathetic. So it just worries me. And as we continue to progress as a society, it's just going to continue to get worse. You know, look at today. We have a new administration, and there's fears of a recession. Are we going to go into recession? Absolutely we are. We have been on that teeter-totter of a recession ever since COVID. But we're definitely going to go into a recession. So there's another concern. People are afraid. Am I going to be able to pay my bills, pay my rent? Am I going to be able to put food on the table? I mean, it just goes around and around and around. It's like I don't know, we want to say maybe like a round robin, right? So again, it's unfortunate because these people are not going to be able to get help. And then we have our veterans, we have our military individuals who they need that, especially those who have been in combat and they have PTSD. But yet their benefits are going to be cut if they have not already been. So when do we finally say enough is enough? When do we put our feet down and say our kids, our vets, they are committing suicide at an alarming rate? When do we become a society again where we truly care? You know, my son, I got to give him credit because he puts up with me. He is such a beautiful and a gentle soul. But he's also a 15-year-old boy. Okay? There's times when he has to be disciplined. There's times when he doesn't. There's times when, you know, he needs that mom hug. He needs that mom love. And there's times when he doesn't. And there's times when we just allow him to come to us. You know, we're extremely grateful because we know that our son can come to us no matter what the issue is. And he knows that. He knows that we're not going to pass judgment on him. He knows that we're going to be here for him regardless. But again, some kids don't have that. So about a year ago, we learned that one of his best friends was actually in jail for attempted homicide. And then it totally went into murder. And it was such an eye-opening situation. This is a kid who is always at our house. A kid who stays the night. Comes over and just, hey, I'm hungry. Feed me, please. You know, we've known him and his family for years. And it was an eye-opener. Because that very well could have been my son. And, you know, even though it has nothing to do with him, he was not there when anything happened. But just the idea that this is one of his closest friends and this has happened to him. So again, we, sat our son down and we said, hey, we understand that this is one of your best friends, I mean, he's like our kid, basically. That's how often he's over. And he was like, no, I kind of just really don't want to talk about it. I get it. But again, you still have to have those options. Okay, if you need to talk to us, let us know. If you feel you need to speak to someone about this, let us know. Those options have to be there. He has to know that he can come to us. And if he does not feel comfortable coming to us, then he knows that there's other options. But again, those other options take months. And somebody can suffer to the point where they're just done with life in general, and end up taking their own life. I'm doing a segment called Silent Voices, and it's about parents who have lost their children to horrific incidents. And 2 of the episodes already have been those who lost their lives to suicide. And it's so heartbreaking. It truly is. One of the ones that we filmed was actually someone who I went to school with. I've known her since the 8th grade. I remember her in high school walking around pregnant with her son who committed suicide. And it was heartbreaking seeing her pain, but being able to still move on. I give her so much credit. I do. And then there was another one. I want to say she's like in her 70s. Her son committed suicide. She found him hanging in the garage. She went to therapy. Her husband said, this isn't doing anything. I no longer want to go. And she stopped. And it's so unfortunate because she is living a life of pain, a life of sadness, and a life of she no longer wants to be here. She is waiting to die. And it's sad. She wants to die so she can be reunited with her son. She stopped taking her medication. She ended up in the hospital. And we know why she did this. And now she learned that her husband has stage 4 cancer, and he's not going to make it. So going back to the therapy, if she would have stuck with her therapy, it would have helped her, because she's so angry, and it's so sad. It really is. If she would have stuck to therapy, regardless if her husband said, I'm doing this or I'm not doing this, it would have helped her tremendously. The therapy, even up to now, even if she would only have gone to therapy, let's say 2-3 years, it would have given her a different perspective on how to handle her life right now. Because her husband doesn't have that much longer to live. And she even said, I no longer want to be here. I never wanted to be left here alone. I never wanted my husband to go first. I always wanted to go first. Well, it's one of those things. We never know when we're going to go. But the one thing I can guarantee her is if she would have kept up with her therapy sessions, she would have looked at life through a different perspective. And I've said this before, if you don't deal with your tragedies, basically, throughout your life, they're going to bubble to the surface. Eventually they will. Everything catches up with you. It could show as, some sort of sickness, some sort of illness, whatever it might be. But sooner or later it will catch up with you. People have had nervous breakdowns because they never dealt with what life has thrown at them. But then again, we have to say to ourselves, well, what about our mental health facilities that we have here in California? As I mentioned, they're not the best. They're not the best whatsoever. They'd rather drug their patients than to have them have that treatment. And it's really, really sad because so many people need that intervention. I have a friend of mine, actually I have two friends. Both of them are therapists. And they are both amazing. They truly are. And what I love about them is that they look at things through a spiritual concept. And they're there. They love their patients. It's not to the point where they get up every morning and they say, oh man, here I go again. They truly love what they do. And I give them kudos for that, because when you truly love what you do, it's going to show in your work ethics, in your patient care. And if we can only have all of our mental health therapists learn and be happy at what they're doing, rather than thinking, oh, is this a Medi-Cal patient or a Medicare? I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with them. I just don't want to deal with this whole situation. Then it's never gonna improve. And never going to improve. And it has to improve. Our kids are dying. Our friends are dying. Our elderly people are dying. And why? Because they need that mental health intervention. And knowing that there's so many kids and even adults that are now resorting to suicide, it's heartbreaking. And it's because they have their entire life ahead of them. I mean, they would never have known what's in store for them because they never gave it a chance. And I, like I said, I mean, I don't want anybody to think that I'm talking about anybody who has taken their own life, okay? Because that's not the case. What I am trying to get through is that our mental health facilities, the direction that we're going in with our mental health, has to change. Just as people go to the doctors, once a year or twice a year, however many times, so they can have their checkup, there should also be a mental health checkup too. Especially now, I mean, we have social media. We have people who talk crap all the time on social media. And that affects them. It affects them. I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but when I was in I don't know if I was in the 5th or 6th grade, at my elementary school, I want to say I lost my train of thought right there. It was in the NPR room. And it was first thing in the morning, and I don't know what I was doing at school at that time in the morning. Maybe I decided that I wanted to get there early to play on the playground or with my friends. I have no idea. All I know is that the door to the NPR room was open. I went through that door, and on the corner where the flag is at, and where the stage is at, I just happened to look and I saw something, but I did not know what it was immediately. I looked to my right and I saw the janitor just standing there with his mouth open. And I looked back again, and there was literally someone who was also in my grade and going to that school, hanging. So in other words, she did end up committing suicide. And I remember we both just kind of stood there. I don't even know what happened, what I did. Did I leave? Did I go get somebody? Did the janitor leave? Did he go get something? I have no idea. I don't know if someone spoke to me about what I saw. I have no idea. I just remember going into the NPR room and seeing her hanging there. And it kind of took a while for it to register. And I just remember, like, I don't know when this happened. Maybe it was a day or two later, maybe even the same day. I just remember hearing the alarm went off, or something went off, but they ignored it. So if somebody would not have ignored whatever it was that went off, she might still be here today. But that's not always the case. You know, if you think about it, she very well could have said, okay, well, I'm not going to do it here, but I'm going to do it somewhere else. Maybe she would end up doing it at her house. Who knows? I had a cousin who committed suicide. His mom actually found him. And she's never been the same since, which I cannot blame her whatsoever. I cannot blame her. I mean, I feel out of my element when my son's sick. I feel out of my element when his asthma, is acting up. But that's just, being a parent. And did they have any mental help reaching out to them, or did they go? I have no idea. And it might not even have been something that was offered then. But just know that eventually everything catches up. And it's so important that if you need to talk to somebody, that you get that help. It could be with a friend. It could be with maybe a sibling, with your parents. Whatever it is. It could be just writing in a journal. But there has to be that self-care. If you start feeling overwhelmed, then that's your cue to take a step back. And there's nothing wrong with you saying no. I don't want to go. I don't want to be by that person. No, 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 no. You have to think of your own self, of your own mental health. I told my wife that one of the best Christmases I have ever had was the first Christmas during COVID, when nobody could go anywhere, right? They wanted you to pretty much wanted you to be a prisoner inside of your home. And, I have a big family, and they're obnoxious. They truly are. I love them, but I can only tolerate them for so long. And I remember we didn't go. And it was just me, my wife, and my son. And it was just so peaceful. It was so calm. There was just so much happiness and joy. Like I said, that was one of my best Christmases I have ever had. And it just kind of goes to show you, just because they're family, it doesn't mean that they're always going to be the best for you. So if you ever feel, I can't be around my brother or my sister or my mom or my dad or whomever it is, you are not obligated to. You have to ask yourself, every time I go by my sister or my brother or whomever it is, does it cause me pain or does it cause me joy? Do I want to be around them or do I not want to be around them? You have choices. And, sometimes you have that family member where you just know you can't be around. because they drain you or they just make you so mad or whatever it might be. That's not a healthy relationship for you. So again, always take yourself into consideration first. Think about your mental health. Think about your situations, your environment. And again, if you ever need help, reach out. Reach out. There are truly people who care. I just, my only concern is when it comes to our mental health practitioners. But just know, a friend does not need to be a mental health practitioner. Sometimes you just need that person to just sit there and listen without judgment, without anything. Just listen. Be my soundboard. And if you ever need help, or you feel you're in the middle of a mental health crisis or whatever it might be, you always can reach out to me. I would never ever turn my back on anyone. But I also need to make you aware that I'm not a mental health professional. I'm a medium, and I definitely can give you some spiritual guidance and be your spiritual therapist. But I might not be the person here you're looking for when it comes to an emotional crisis or a mental health crisis. So again, take care of yourself. Take care of your well-being, because it has to be you to make those decisions, not anyone else. And there's always someone, and there's always people who care and will be here for you. Always remember that. You are never, ever alone. There's always somebody here to help you. All right, until next week, stay well and stay blessed. And you always can catch me on Instagram at Victoria Kennedy Intuitive, and on Facebook, wherever you want, you can find me. All right, stay well and stay blessed, my friends.